The general story of Carol to me is was a story about forbidden love, um, and about friendship, and about a period of time in our country's history where freedom to be who you were was certainly far different than we have happening today. Although I still feel there's miles and miles to go. I think it's a very beautiful love story. I think its uniqueness is its ordinariness, for lack of an articulate way of putting it. It's a simple story about two people who love each other who can't be together for reasons that are largely societal pressures, and what that meant for two people's hearts, and where that left them, and where that takes them. And I think it's also a little bit from Therese's character, from Rooney's character, a story about coming into your own. And sometimes it takes a particular person, a particular relationship, I think typically romantic one, that sort of leads you to figure out who you are. And it doesn't mean you'll always stay with that person forever, but it kind of helps you to arrive at the person you're meant to be in the world. I didn't think that I wanted to be a part of it because the story meant something to me. I thought I wanted to be a part of it because I'm not an idiot, and I want to work with Todd Haynes, and I want to work with Cate, and I want to work with Rooney. And I thought the script was so beautiful, and I was pretty well versed in the Patricia Highsmith of it all. And so I just thought the whole thing just seemed like a confection that if I didn't get to bite it, I was going to be really upset. But it wasn't an easy job to get. I auditioned for it. There were many girls, more famous girls than me. I am famous, so many more girls who are more famous than I am. I always can't figure out the I and the me. Yeah, thank you. And on camera, no less. That's really charming. So I knew it was going to be hard to get, and so I chased it very seriously. But Todd, doesn't do sort of auditions in person, so I went and made a tape, and he had seen 12 Years a Slave, so I think he had a interest in me from that. But there were a lot of girls who were vying for the part because it was, in a movie like this that is a character-driven piece, a substantial part of the story that was a gettable, attainable role because they already had two very, very famous women, carrying the whole thing. So when something like that is possible, all the dogs come out and everybody wants it. So it wasn't so much that I didn't think that it wasn't an important story to be a part of. It just wasn't the motivating factor for me. It was more of a greedy actress who wanted a part in a movie that I thought was going to be really special. I play Abby, who is a former lover of Cate's character, Carol, and who then, when she cannot have Cate in a romantic way anymore, she chooses to stay in her life to be her confidant and her best friend. And Therese comes along and is, I think, quite threatening to Abby and is clearly turning Carol's head in a way that I think feels scary for her. At the same time, her love for her friend and her true desire for her friend to be happy and have a life that she should have. Abby's not married. She doesn't have to sort of deal with that part of the societal reality. She never chose to do that. And so Carol has a bigger sort of hurdle to climb. So she just wants to be there as as a real support for Carol. But it does cost her something. I've said this before, but I think Todd does this incredibly beautiful mix of hyper reality mixed with hyper cinematic fantasy and beauty. And so it swirls together in this way where you feel like you're watching something that is so hyper real and yet incredibly cinematic, which to me is the most incredible mix for a movie, because it is a visual medium to tell a story. So you do want it to have a particular look. Otherwise, you could read the book. This is being brought to life and being given, a pulse and breath and a heart. And that is completely due to Todd and to the incredible performances of Cate and Rooney and Sandy Powell, who I think is like one of the greatest costume designers working, and not to mention Ed Lachman, who made the movie look unlike the other Todd Haynes movies that are set in this time period, which I think is a real feat in shooting on 16mm film and all of that gives it the texture that it has, that I think just elevates it to a whole nother level. The music, there's not a single thing about the movie that doesn't sort of work at its peak. And that it's like lightning in a bottle. It never really happens, rarely happens. Well, Cate Blanchett's no good, and everyone should know that. She's not a good actress. It's just, I don't know why people think she's any good. Just kidding. She's the greatest actress we have, I think. She was incredibly intimidating to me at first, in theory, from a distance. You know, I had been watching her movies for years and have always sort of revered her. And so the idea that I was going to be asked to speak a cogent thought and carry on a conversation or pretend to be a person just casually talking to her in a scene was, to me, the acting event of my lifetime, because she's a very formidable presence, and at the same time we were laughing and joking and you know, created a kind of immediate friend story between us that had history and texture and a layer to it that happened kind of organically. We didn't have a conversation about it. We had a little rehearsal with Todd where we were talking about some of our backstory, but some of it was both of us just sort of instinctually brought friendship history to it from our own experiences and sort of smushed it on top of this stuff, and then a natural organic thing happened where we really make each other laugh, and that was a wonderful component. But I think, you know, when you read the way the character of Carol's described by Highsmith, the color of her eyes, and there's just, it's Cate Blanchett. There's nobody that could play the part other than Cate Blanchett, I think. It's just, to me, completely, it just wouldn't be the same movie. It was destined to be that.